Hey everybody, we're here to make jokes about the 737 MAX. What's your favorite joke to make about airplane rapid decompression in flight? Wait, did anyone die during that? I don't think anybody did.
I don't know. You should have checked before you started making jokes about it, though.
Yeah, let me Google that. No one died.
Okay, joke's good.
Yeah, the joke's good. Nobody died. Nobody died.
Okay.
We can all decompress.
So, John, we've been busy bees, haven't we?
Yeah, we've been busy bees making plane jokes.
That's right. And, you mentioned the other day that you get a lot of people coming into Retrotaku and saying, hey, John, it's a shame Hard4Games stopped dumping things.
Yeah, I do actually get that more often than I think. They're like, do you guys dump anything anymore? Like, because I haven't seen any. Like, it's a shame you guys got out of that. And I was like, what are you talking about? No,
what now?
We're constantly dumping stuff.
Constantly
It's just, usually we try and decide, like, is this game worth making a video out of? Is a review copy of, like, Tennis 99 for PS1 worth a review?
Yeah.
Like, that's going to get 3 views. It's going to take hours upon hours and hours to shoot and edit. But then we got, just as you can see, a dearth of games. Look at that. Look at how many games
there are. These are all
there
Wii
are.
U games, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, all the same.
This isn't
Wii U
everything.
game. Yeah.
Like, we have a lot more we're going to talk about in this episode that's back at the shop right now.
Yeah.
Because I got in a stack of things at Retrotaku. Then immediately I asked my boss, I was like, hey, Dan, can we dump these? And he's like, yeah, you can dump them as long as you can help me try and find a price for them. Because they're at a store, they're going to be for sale.
Yeah.
But it was
Most of
just
them.
like,
Yeah.
it's so much stuff that it's like, well,
Yeah.
we got to make a video on, like, just how much stuff comes in
The
sometimes.
girth of crap that
Yeah.
we're dumping. So I think people ask you that question or lament the fact that we're not dumping anymore for 2 reasons. One is the reason you mentioned, which is like we have dumped a lot of stuff. For example, all of these Wii U discs are basically Sonic and Mario at the Olympic Games, and they're all just different builds of that, including some with like debug features and stuff. And I just didn't think that that particular title would make the best episode.
Yeah. Looking at minor differences between, like, what,
Massive
6
number of
different variants of the exact same
of
game.
kind of like a throwaway Olympic Mario themed.
I was going to
game.
say, Mario game, that's worth a
Sure.
video. Sonic game, that's worth a video. Nobody cares about the Mario and Sonic games.
If it was like Mario Party or something like that, I
Yeah.
would. If it was like Mario Kart, I would. If it's Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, I didn't.
It's on its own, it is dubious at best.
Yeah, what this
That
was.
algo doesn't want it.
What this was for me was an opportunity to get my Wii U dev kit out and put the homebrew channel on it and learn how to dump Wii U games.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the process for doing that, the instructions that are given online are never for dev kits, they're for actual retail units, and the process is different. The process is like omits certain steps and then adds other steps. So basically what you end up doing is tinkering around on your Wii U for days, being frustrated that nothing is the same and nothing is working until you just start randomly guessing, and then you guess right, and then you're like, oh, that's the that's the process. That's how you dump on Wii U. There we go. Okay, got it. So this for me was primarily a learning experience.
Yeah.
I think the other reason, because I said there were 2 reasons as to why people might think that we stopped dumping, was that maybe they're just not getting the videos in the algorithm. Because there are stuff that we have somewhat recently dumped that just maybe was missed. We did a meet and greet in Michigan recently, went really well, and we got a big old stack of Saturn and PlayStation beta, debug, and preview builds that we're going to go over first here. Now, some of these are very close to final, but other ones are not, and some of them have, like I mentioned, debug features. So, we're not going to do an episode on each one of these individually, but if one of them stands out to you that you want us to research more, see if there actually are significant differences, or ultimately do a video on it, let us know in the comments below, because then we can kind of dedicate our time to that. We're not going to dedicate our time to each and every one of these. There's like 30 games altogether here. It would just be impossible. But if there's something you see, you want to mess around with, you want to learn more, let us know.
That's so cool that it just says that.
Yeah, there's 2 of them there.
System disc.
This one is interesting right here because this is just a disc that would allow you to pop in I guess like a preview disc or a burned Sega Saturn disc into your Saturn. I suppose that was the way it was described to me.
That's sick.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat.
That is really, really cool, though. Like, look at that. That's awesome. I gotta take a picture of that.
Sure.
I'm gonna send that to a friend who's literally gonna poop himself from seeing something like that.
This is Sega Rally, and this is actually an earlier version of Sega Rally that has it has slightly different music.
Interesting.
But it probably is more akin to the arcade. So it's not like something that probably hasn't ever existed. So it's like, can I really do a video on an earlier version of Sega Rally with a slightly different track that's just the same track?
I was going to say that boot disc is more interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, wow, cool, Sega Rally. It is a port from an arcade game. Like, what? Like, are there debug features? You know, I don't think so. So it becomes a little bit kind of funky. So let's go over a couple of the games in this stack right here. Again, this was given to us, lent to us by an individual who showed up at our meet and greet, which, by the way, sir, if you are watching, please answer my texts so I can return these to you. He was very much like, take your time, take as much time as you need, etc., etc.
You might just be busy.
Yeah, but I didn't need that much time. And I do like when I have things in office or like on borrow, like to be able to return them as soon as possible, generally speaking. So it makes me a little bit nervous to have something for like multiple months. So contact me back so I can confirm your return address, please. So we have a Rayman preview disc.
Yeah, that's really cool. Play this disc on your Sega Saturn.
PlayStation Legacy of Kain.
Hell yeah.
And from what I recall, the files are different between this and retail, but I cannot find exactly how or if any of those differences are significant. A lot of sports games as well. We have like a FIFA 97 for Saturn.
I do love that very professional way where it's like electronic arts and everything printed on there.
It's pretty cool.
That's really cool. Like the Saturn literally being printed on the slip cover there.
You know, here's one that's NHL 97 Saturn Final Code. So it just says right there that it's the same.
Final Code. Interesting.
Solar Eclipse for the Saturn. Yeah, Solar Eclipse has a ton of debug features. This is probably the most debug beta version of all of these games where it's very obvious, or as soon as you boot the game up, it just is very clearly something earlier. This is Off-World Interceptor, which was basically a port of a 3DO game.
I just wanted to give a special shout out to, there's a card in here for an employee at Crystal Dynamics, Jennifer Abbott Bulka. You were public relations and licensing manager during the time of Off-Road Interceptor Extreme. And I love that your email when you were working there was, "Hey Abbott." Mm-hmm. It's a solid joke. I like when you see an office is willing to have a little bit of a sense of humor. That is so gone.
Oh, yeah.
From all of those big companies now.
Well, especially like in your email address. I think people took email a little bit less seriously then in terms of like...
Yeah, I mean, it's in the 90s.
Yeah, so it kind of is.
I mean, it's not like 420 Bong Lord 69 or something like that.
This is PlayStation Total Eclipse
of
Turbo.
The heart?
Yeah. True Pinball, Thunderstrike 2. Again, these are seemingly just like review copies with minor, if any, differences. But the thing is that you still have to dump them and see.
Did the person writing on this know that you can write on this part?
Don't know. Don't know.
It's very strange.
Here's a pile of discs that... Here's a pile of discs that John...
Here's a bag of dicks John brought over.
Here's a bag of discs that John brought over. And this isn't even all of them. This is just sort of... Because the ones that we already dumped the other day, you brought back to the store. There were like, what, 10 of them? 15 of them?
Yes.
We'll get some B-roll of those and we'll kind of show them as we talk. But we have an Atlas published game here, Eggs of Steel.
Which I literally never heard of, but now I found out, like, complete in box, it's like over $100.
Yeah.
Tennis Arena just has like a mock-up of the final art, but I was like, what's this? And I open it, and it says, Ubisoft Entertainment, Tennis Arena Final Master, PlayStation 11/1/1997 on there. And I was like, oh. The guy who traded it in had bought a lot of things that had been with someone who was reviewing for a magazine. And some of these came with a letter that was like, hey, I was literally the only person to ever play this disc. Enjoy being the second one.
Yeah.
So it was somebody working at a magazine, had gotten a whole bunch of stuff like this. I believe the Tennis Master came from a separate thing, but this guy had just been buying auctions for years.
There were 2 games that were very clearly earlier versions. There was Civilization 2, the PS1, and then there was Tai Fu, which is basically like DreamWorks is Kung Fu Panda before Kung Fu Panda, that was very clearly an earlier build as well.
We had a bin that was like mostly bootlegs and stuff like that. And I started like clearing through there, and I saw some jewel cases, and I pick it up, and I'm like, Brigandine Reviewable, number 25. I was like, it's entirely possible this may be a legit copy of review printed Brigandine. Brigandine was an Atlas published but not developed PS1 RPG that has quite a cult following now.
Yeah.
If you look it up, it's got some amazing box art. It's one of those great examples of US box art that's actually quite good. Mostly because it's pretty close to the Japanese. But it was part of that era of just like PS1 RPGs absolutely knocking it out of the park. So it was really cool when I stopped and I was like, does that say Brigandine?
Yeah. We actually dumped that tonight, but we haven't compared it to the retail version to see if it's different at all, or if this is just some rando burned disc. Like, we don't know yet.
We will find out.
But we'll find out. If it's something that you guys are interested in, again, let us know in the comments below so we can kind of like determine what to focus on. Because sometimes we just don't know what to focus on because there's so much stuff.
And then underneath that, I spotted these. They say Mitsui Gold 74 Mitsui Advanced Media Lifetime. They're just extremely high-end CDRs. These quite literally are like the gold standard of CDRs. You can't get these anymore. They were like offices would use them. If you needed something printed and you needed to send it to somebody and you needed to know that it would have no issues, you'd buy these back in the day. And I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let me just see what it says on the side. PSX Tools, Net Yorose Boot Up Disc, GSPAR ROM Flasher. Okay, yes, we'll dump those too. I was like,
No, I
what?
didn't know what this one was. So can you explain that?
So, if you look up Net Yorose, it'll look like a big old PlayStation 1, but it's just black.
Okay.
So its idea is that it was a consumer grade development system. Now there was a similar thing like the Wonder Witch instead of the Wonder Swan, where you could program your own games and it would come with documentation to teach you how to do these things and stuff like that. But with the Wonder Witch, you could not then just put games on the Wonder Swan. But there were ways to port those. So the Net Yorose you could buy, and you could develop your own games, and the Net Yorose community could like swap them around and check them out and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was say you were a hobbyist and you just really liked programming and stuff, and you know, it's the mid-90s in Japan, so you have complete F-off money in Japan because they had crazy money at that time. You could just go and buy yourself a Net Yorose and start making your own games. But then you could, if other people were like, dude, this is actually really good. Do you want help on this? Like, people would start to collaborate. And eventually, some games started to be pitched. And so I feel that's a large reason why there's such a more experimental feel to a lot of PlayStation 1 games, especially if you start diving into Japanese exclusives. You find some very interesting, like, very strange stuff.
Yeah.
But that's because, like, so many people who were, like, you know, daytime programmers who were like, yeah, I program stuff, but it's mostly just to help my bank do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to make games. And then they could be like, I got this concept for a game.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the media to write a game to, like, these in comparison to buying, like, those flash cartridges for Super Nintendo, peanuts.
Yeah.
The Nintendo 64 flash writer and cartridges, expensive as hell.
Yeah.
This, you could literally go to any store that sold computer equipment in the 90s and buy something equivalent to this. And just start swapping it around.
Yeah.
So there were probably some like super nerds in Akihabara, like all swapping this stuff around. And that's pretty cool. Like, I've always wanted a Net Yorose. I think I saw one when I was in Akihabara. I forgot to take a photo of it, but it was like, oh man, is that one? I'll buy it. How much is the price? I'll see if I can find one another day. Whoo.
Yeah, so John had mentioned there was an SNES cartridge. It was a wrestling game, and it was
Natsume Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, and it was final build.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything. We dumped it, we checked it. It was just the same. So nothing really to showcase there, unfortunately. But again, we wanted to show you guys what we've been doing in the background because we've been very, very busy. But it's sort of like it's not always going to be a Zelda or a Mario or something like that. Sometimes it's these smaller games, smaller developers, what have you. But you still got to dump them. You still got to check and see, But
these games aren't as charismatic as the big games, but they're just as important to dump. And it's important that we let you know that we're continuing to dump them, because it's very important that we keep this a visible project so that people out there who have undumped media will be like, oh, so they didn't close up shop.
Yeah. Seemingly, people keep thinking that. Let us know if there's a particular game in the stack that you want us to cover a little bit more in depth, or just show a little bit more footage from, etc., or just explore more and be like, okay, was this retail? Like, is it not? And then we can kind of go from there and kind of provide some more footage for you guys. Another thing we'll be able to test too is that these claim that they have a lifetime. So you burn it and then it never disc rots, it never goes bad, it never, etc., etc. So we get to actually test that, because they probably never expected people, 20, 30 years later testing their products.
Yeah. So John Mitsui, we're going to have words if that doesn't dump.
We're going to have words. We will have words. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff, and hope to see you all back for the next one. Take care.
Bye.